Look, I'm keenly aware of the restrictions age can put on a career. In fact, due to a deal I made as a teen with the neighborhood witch, I defied all the laws of age and career and managed to stay on TV as a woman well into my 50s. And I also understand loving what you do so much that nothing anyone says could make you want to give it up. But I also know none of us is so special that we couldn't put a wanted sign on a phone booth and instantly find 10 replacements for ourselves. Which is why I have some serious choice words for the elder. And when I say elder, I mean old statespeople who are holding their positions and their constituents hostage. Year after year, politicians in their late 70s, 80s, and even 90s are running for re-election rather than turning over the reins of power. I don't mean they should give the keys to the castle to children, but like maybe someone who is my age even, 55? Can we compromise on that? I understand. I do. I understand the need for stability and institutional knowledge. That is huge, and experience. But I also know that I don't want my dad in charge of regulating things he doesn't understand, like AI or big tech. And that is saying a lot because compared to most politicians, he's just a mere youth. And I love my dad, and he is doing great, and he understands lots of things, but he should not be in charge of my reproductive organs. I'm sorry, Papa. Since this Congress has begun, 3 Democrats in the House have passed away. Look, I know they weren't planning to, but I also know it means that the recent House budget bill cutting hundreds of millions of dollars to SNAP passed by 1 vote. It's reckless, and it is avoidable. We have to have the hard conversations, okay? It is very hard to take the car keys away from Grandpa. I know that. I absolutely get that. But sometimes we have to take a bunch of deep breaths and actually do it. It's for safety. It's for security. It's important. This is Choice Words. I'm Samantha Bee. My guest this week is Amanda Litman, author of When We're in Charge and co-founder of Run for Something. She has called on every member of Congress over 70 to announce that they will not run for re-election, and we had a fascinating conversation about it. So take a listen and make good choices. I'm so glad that you said yes to come and talk to me today. I'm going to dive right into it because I feel like we have so much to talk about. The show it's all about choice. You are the founder of Run for Something, which obviously helps and encourages young people to run for office. You're the author of a brand new book, When We Are in Charge, which is really about how to be the boss and a good leader, like in any industry, not just politics. Now, you are a boss. How has your decision-making style evolved since you became the boss of Run for Something?
So when I started Run for Something, I was 26, about to turn 27 years old.
Right.
I was single. I was coming off of 2 years of working on the presidential campaign.
Yeah.
I was tired and sad. And I was ready and willing to give everything I had to this organization. And I did. I had a great co-founder, this guy named Ross Morales-Ricchetto. We worked really closely. We built a team. 8 years later, I am 35. I have 2 kids, a 2.5-year-old and an 8-month-old. So I'm in it. I'm like deep in the shit, literally and figuratively every morning.
Yes.
I have to think about my time and my priorities and what I want out of life very differently. And it has that process, of growing up, but especially of thinking about how to structure a workplace in a way that people can both be committed to the work and also have lives outside of it, has become even more personal for me.
Right. Did you find that having little kids and just growing up in general, but also really that act of reproducing and making little human beings, did you find that to be very clarifying?
It turns your world upside down.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. it was like a day or two before my older daughter's first birthday. I went to this conference and they had to do icebreakers, like these really cheesy ones. And one of them that they had you do in these like tiny conversations was, if you were 30% braver, what would you do to be a better ancestor?
Oh my God. What?
It was kind of a very touchy-feely conference. And I remember sitting there and being like, I'm pretty brave. Like I'm like not afraid of much, at least professionally, I'm pretty brave. But to be a better ancestor, like I am missing bedtime with my daughter, who's about to turn 1, to be at a work event. Like the things I'm doing to make the world better for her eventually might be making me a worse mom today.
How did you grapple with that?
Part of it was really thinking about the structures that we had built at Run for Something to allow people to have full lives outside of work. So like we have a 4-day work week. So Fridays are for me to like get my shit together before I go into a weekend with my kids. We are really flexible with calendaring and scheduling and make sure people really know what their priorities are and how to win or lose at what they're doing so that you can succeed or fail and like move forward.
Right.
But I think for me personally, it was also like, what do I want my life to look like in my job and outside of it? And what does that mean for my ambition? What does that mean for my career? Anyone who's had kids, no matter whether you gave birth to them or care for them, whatever, it like totally upends the way that you understand time.
Yes.
Both on like the short term, like how long is a day and how many years are years?
I think that I reflect upon this kind of philosophically a lot because I'm a lot older than you are. I'm 55 years old and I'm definitely now in like the final third of my life. That's so weird to say, but like
God willing.
Yeah, God willing. But it is, you're called upon to answer questions for yourself, such as like, what is enough? Like, what does enough look like? What does quality of life look like? Like, what do you actually, you just have a lot more, you kind of have more like deathbed type conversations with yourself at this age where you're like, well, who do I want standing around me as I take my last breath? Like, am I going to, is there going to be like an Emmy Award sitting there to comfort me, or this family that I've built and these like relationships that I've built? Like, so I feel like what you're talking about is that conversation, which I think we don't have enough of culturally here.
I totally agree. And I think, for the book, I talked to 135 other like millennial and Gen Z leaders.
Yeah.
And it was the thing that came up like in almost every single one of those conversations is, I love my job. I love what I do. I don't want my job to be all of who I am.
Right.
And I don't know how to set up a system to make that possible, but I know that's not what I want.
It feels incumbent upon leaders of businesses to want a better life for themselves in order to make a better life for the people that work for them. But unfortunately, so many people are brought up into a system of like punitive hours and like spinning wheels, but at all hours of the day or night. And you're like, I just pretty recently read a story in the Wall Street Journal that was like, these firms on Wall Street are capping hours for new recruits to 80 hours per week. And I was like, what are you talking about?
There was a study out of Korea just a couple of days ago that said that they looked at the brain matter of people who were working 52 hours a week or more.
Yeah.
And like it literally degrades your brain to work harder.
Right. And because you're not really working better.
You're not your best self.
You're not your best self. I'm very much in support of a 4-day work week. I actually think, but I come from the world of television where that's just kind of structurally a little bit more, it's not always possible, but you try to make it happen as much as possible because it is not life or death.
Yeah.
Quality of life, like no one goes into comedy and television to lead a super crappy life where you can't ever do anything or have any fun. Like you're supposed to be having fun somewhat. It's hard to even wrap your brain around being productive after that many hours in the office. And often I would find like if we were working a kind of outrageous hours, most of that time is kind of spent spinning wheels.
Yeah. I think about like when I worked on presidential campaigns and we would be at the office from 7 a.m. until 2 a.m. Like that was a totally normal schedule.
Right.
So were we really being the most productive? No.
Right. No.
But
no.
you feel like you have to. And, some jobs, like there's an end date to a presidential campaign. You can do anything for a small period of time. But
yes.
I think one of my refrains really over the work we've done the last 8 years is like, our mission is urgent and important. Not every task in service of that mission is urgent and important, and being really discerning about the difference between those things.
It feels like working better is the goal, like working better within a more reasonable time frame is something that I really appreciate. Well, can I ask, how did you learn to become a boss? It actually is such a learning curve. Are there people that you learned from? You must have learned habits that you wanted to break immediately, and then others probably took more time. Is that a fair characterization?
Politics is an environment, but I think this is true in a lot of industries too, where you get promoted because you can do the job, not because you're a good manager.
Right. Yes.
I think my third job, when I was 24, I was managing people.
Wow.
I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I had convinced myself that I was a bad manager because I didn't have any good models for how to do it well, because that wasn't a thing we prioritized in the political space. And I read every book I could get my hands on. I listened to every podcast I could find. I watched every TED Talk, and I would sort of talk to people about their approaches and sort of theories of the case. But, part of the reason I wrote the book is because none of those felt like they spoke to me.
Right.
There was a lot of how to, management by walking around. I was like, my team has been virtually remote for 8 years.
Right.
How do I show up with executive presence over Zoom and Slack?
Right. Well, how do you?
You have to be so intentional. Thinking about what does it mean to create a team culture in a remote or flexible work environment, which is basically the same thing as moderating an online community.
Right.
So for people who've grown up online, it's a very different framework.
Oh my God. This is so interesting because I too kind of fell into management, was a comedy person who then just suddenly was managing all these people. And I found it to be one of the most, when people ask me, and they often do ask me, they're like, what's the hardest part of what you do? I'm like, it's managing people. It's very difficult. People go to school exclusively for the purpose of learning how to do that well. So when you fall into it because you're good at something else, it's like running into a wall.
And I think part of that is because management is a set of skills that you can learn, but also because managing other people requires it not to be about you. It's about how do they want to receive feedback? What information do they need? How do they need it? What are the guardrails they need to be able to thrive? For people who get put into positions of leadership who are often, you have a little bit of an ego, you think you're good at it, you got to put your ego aside.
Right.
And then the tension comes in, and this is what I write through a ton of how do you do that while still being yourself?
The ideal version of it is that you bring authenticity to the experience of leadership. But also, if you don't want to offend, maybe your authentic self is, maybe you're
kind of an asshole.
Maybe you're kind of I don't know, maybe you're abrasive or you're brusque or something like that, which people don't love. How can you help people figure out which version of themselves to put forward?
I think it's not 3 easy steps exactly, but it's sort of 3 processes. The first is deep self-evaluation and awareness. So who are you? What do you care about? What are your values? What are the things that you hold true? And what are the things that are sort of around the edges that are less important to you?
Right.
The second is who does your team need you to be? That's a really hard question to answer, and the answer will be different for everyone. But if you're, running a team at Nike, who does that team need you to be? If you're running a nonprofit, if you're running for office, whatever it is, who do they need? What do they need from you?
Right.
And then what is the overlap between those two? And the goal should be that who you are as a person and the persona that you bring to your leadership role, the distance between those two things should be as small as possible.
That's really interesting.
They're not exactly the same. And that can feel really hard.
It's kind of fluid. You must talk to a lot of people who find themselves at a management crossroads who are I'm stuck. I'm lost. How do I be? How do I talk to people do people come to you with their individual issues and ask you to?
I mean, I get it from political candidates. I get it from people I talk to from the book, like all kinds of folks sliding into my DMs being like, how do I do this?
Right.
And the answer, this is both the freedom of sort of where we are in society in this moment and the challenge is that there is no right answer.
Right.
Like it used to be, oh, you want to look professional, you wear a suit and tie and you show up and you have this kind of art in your office and you speak in this sort of tone. And like, that's not true anymore. I think that's a good thing, but that also means you sort of got to make it up as you go.
Although it is true in some offices, sort of. Like I don't know too much about like Wall Street and that kind of world of finance and business, but it is sort of structured differently. They have like a different they seem to have a different set of rules from everybody else. Do you perceive that?
I do, but I talk to folks who work in like finance or even like lawyers, and they would say it's changing.
It's changing.
Because there's more women, more people of color, more LGBTQ folks who are rising through the ranks here.
Right.
And they can't, if they try the models of leadership that they had before, it like fits them like an itchy costume. Like it doesn't work.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there are no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts. You only pay for results. When I was looking to hire someone, I gotta tell you, it was so slow. It was extremely overwhelming. I wish that I had used Indeed. How fast is Indeed? In the minute that I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. Join the 3.5 million employers worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/SamB. Just go to Indeed.com/SamB right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/SamB. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
I like how you talk about branding and what our leaders should share with people. Do you think that we really need to like our political leaders as people? Is there a world where we can go back to like boring but competent political leaders again? Or is that fucked up now beyond, like, is that FUBAR? Is that over?
I think on the national scale, that's really hard.
Right.
Which makes me really sad. Because I would like to say that we would go back to a place where it can be boring but competent. Mm-hmm. But I think Trump blew that up. And now people need it to be both, hopefully want it to be both competent and interesting.
Right. Interesting. They want it to be interesting. I think that people like that they believe that he speaks authentically and they don't care what comes out of his mouth at all.
It's like, he's just entertaining. He's just entertaining. And also he has 45 years of a public brand behind him. So sort of like whatever he says, they can, transpose onto who they think he is.
Right. Is it true that more people signed up with Run for Something in the past 6 months than in the first whole 3 years of Trump's first term?
We're at about 47,000 people who've signed up to say they want to run for office. It's almost a quarter of our entire candidate pipeline have signed up in the last 6 months.
I find that both incredibly hopeful.
I know.
And also really shocking because the administration is they have such a shocking disregard for law and judges and any type of rules. It feels like a very scary time to run or even to speak out. Do you feel that behind the scenes, or are people just like empowered? They're just like, fuck this.
I think it is heavily weighted towards fuck this, with a heavy dose of, if my leaders aren't going to fight for me, I have to fight for me.
Right. And I think that's true.
Yeah.
Your organization is so keenly meeting this moment.
Which is such a bummer. I wish that wasn't the case. I'm so proud that we've made it to this point, but I wish we weren't so necessary.
I know. Well, thank God you're there. I mean, really, thank goodness that you're there. Okay, tell me why. Can we just talk about the 4-day work week?
Yes.
Just go back to that a little bit, because I do think it, in my industry, it really works. I can't say that that's replicable across every industry, but tell me why you think it works.
Because I think if you think about your normal 5-day, 9 to 5, how much of that time do you spend scrolling the internet, doing online shopping, or just reading New York Magazine?
Right.
What kind of time in your day is not being used well? When you have 4 days, 32 hours, you are more rigorous about how you use it. You're more intentional about prioritization. You are really thoughtful about what needs to be a meeting and what can just be an email, because you don't have that much meeting time. And you spend the weekend actually resting. So you come back on Monday and you're ready to do the work again. And the sort of downstream effects of that is when you're working, some people do it Monday through Thursday, Tuesday through Friday, however you want to do it. Let's say Monday through Thursday. You have time on Fridays, on nights, on weekends to be a better parent, a better partner, a better citizen. You can volunteer more. When we started the 4-day work week back in 2022, we did it as a pilot, and we worked with a research program out of the UK that was doing this globally. And they did surveys of our staff over the course of the 6-month period. And we had some people who we're excited about it, but we're a little wary, because they were oh, I don't know, I might not have enough time to get my stuff done. Every single metric that you would want to see go down, stress, anxiety, burnout, went down. Every single one you'd want to see go up. Work-life satisfaction, productivity, enthusiasm for their job went up. And I distinctly remember somebody telling us at the end of it, the things that I have to say no to at work, the good ideas that I can't chase, are made up for by the things I get to say yes to outside of it.
That's really, really interesting. And I do think it's not it's not even an all or nothing proposition too when it comes to business. It's you can do every 2 Friday, do 1 Friday a month, an extra Friday, and
be creative.
It doesn't have to be suddenly we're packing it all into 4 days and there's no turning back. You can do it. We would do it in the summertime. We were Summer Fridays.
Yep.
We're doing Summer Fridays. If you have work to do and you can't get it done in the 4 days, the Monday to Thursday, because hours can be weird, then that's fine. But it could be a lighter day, or it's a work from home day, or something like that. It's it's kind of a flex day in a way. Well, and hopefully you're at the beach, but maybe not.
The onus is on leadership then to be okay, if you can't get everything done in 4 days, what's actually on your plate? Let's reprioritize. Let's think about how we're staffing this differently. When we now have new folks join the team over the last couple of years, we'll say you're onboarding to the role, learning, who does what, how to log into your email, all of that. But you're also onboarding to a new cadence of working. And it takes time to get used to. You have to sort of recalibrate.
Right.
A project that I thought would take me 2 weeks might actually take me 2.5.
Right.
That's okay. As long as you really get used to it, you learn it, it's just the best. I'm never working on a Friday again if I can avoid it.
You've taken maternity leave twice as the boss. We could talk kind of pretty endlessly about the disgrace of paid family leave in this country. It is brutal. I'm actually Canadian by birth, so we have...
Lucky.
Well, we just have, I moved here and then I had my children here where we really didn't have that. And it was a culture shock, a real culture shock. But when you're the boss, you don't always think about it before it's a necessity. And so I didn't really think about having a family leave policy in my workplace until someone on my staff got pregnant.
Yep.
And then it was whoa. She was like, "What's the policy here?" And I was like, "Let me get back to you on that. I got to go make one." And I was so proud of what we were able to offer from that moment forward. And we tried to get other television shows to adopt our policy, which was, I think, very healthy for the industry. It was like no one had really ever just done it. Like no one had ever really found a way to do it. And sometimes you just need to find a way. And sometimes that's not possible. But like, did you create your own maternity? Like how did you decide what the parameters were in your own workplace?
So we started always with 3 months fully paid.
Okay.
And we always had unlimited PTO, which we do track people taking PTO because we want folks to actually take a minimum. So if we see that, like we get quarterly rep reports from our automated system. If somebody hasn't taken enough, we encourage them to do so. So if you needed to add a little bit of time on top of those 12 weeks for whatever reason, we're pretty flexible about that within reason. The challenge for me was like, I would Google when I got pregnant with my first daughter, how to take maternity leave as boss. And I would find a lot of like how to ask your boss for leave, which again, damning indictment of America, or like how to, put up your out of office and delegate out your tasks. And I was like, my tasks are not concrete like that. Like my job is raise money, talk to people, long-term visioning, solve crises, like put out fires, make decisions that no one else wants to make.
Right.
How do you delegate that? Now, I was very lucky. I had a great co-founder who could take on a bulk of the work, but thinking about how to sort of write out everything I do, and then what would other people need to know to do them? And then what could I hand off? And then when I came back to work, what came back to me, which was great because I didn't take back the things I didn't want to do anymore.
Oh, that's good.
I think the process of that, and have now worked with a bunch of our staff who've gone on to have kids and like my friends and colleagues who've done so, the process of doing that, I think ultimately made the organization more resilient. Because like, what if I got hit by a bus? Thinking about how to set up a team structure so that people can take time away, whether it's for maternity leave or bereavement or whatever, if you're intentional about it, the whole system is a little bit more resilient and sustainable.
Right. Do you ever have people in the workplace who just don't function well in this kind of environment, who are just a bit more traditional and it's just not a good, like that kind of holistic approach just doesn't really work for them and it's just better for them to be elsewhere?
We're pretty careful in our hiring process, but it's definitely something I heard from folks who I talked to for the book where they would be like, I'd have staff that don't get it. And I think one of the challenges on that is like to run a space like this, you have to document everything. You have to be really explicit. Like you can't have a code of conduct that just says, don't be an asshole. Because actually your definition of asshole and my definition of asshole might not be the same. It's more work for leadership, which is why I think a lot of places don't do it. But it makes you better.
It's funny because I feel like there's a kind of an older way of thinking about it. And I think that people who grew up in more traditional systems, generationally, have a hard time sort of hearing this. There's a bit of a wall. There can be a built up, not a callous, but like a patterns of existing or like returning to the habitual way of doing things, and they're resistant to it. And it sounds to them like nobody's working hard, but it's the actual antithesis of that. Yeah, everybody's working very hard.
I think especially in this moment where, we're talking about AI in the workplace, we're talking about, the sort of two options when it comes to AI are either less people doing the work or people doing less work smarter. I want to do the latter. People doing less work, but doing the work they're doing smarter.
Right. It's focused.
Yeah.
It's just like a focusing of the work. It's getting it done. I actually found having kids very, the reason I use the word clarifying is 'cause for me, that was it distilled the work that I did. And it made the work more high quality because you can really see this darkness of your calendar and you know that you don't have time for bullshit.
Yes. And no patience, especially with little kids. I'm like, I have a 2-year-old screaming at me because I put the stuffed Elmo in the wrong seat at the dinner table.
Yeah.
I can only deal with one crazy person in any given day. It cannot be someone who I pay to work for me. It could be the one I made, not the one I employ.
That's really funny. It's so true. You just kind of like draw these lines. Like, I think being able to compartmentalize is is a very handy skill.
Yeah. I also think like the skills that I'm realizing now in parenthood of like self-regulation, of taking a beat before I respond, of, not letting their chaos make me chaos.
Yeah.
It's the same skills I use in the workplace.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about the gerontocracy that we currently live under. Is that cool?
Let's do it.
Oh, God. Oh.
No, is it cool? Is the gerontocracy cool? No. Is talking about it
not
necessary? So
it's vital. I feel like when you open the door to this conversation, you immediately get accused of being ageist. And I don't appreciate that.
Nope.
It's not helpful. It's really not helpful that people are not making way for other people to do the work. Like, I'm very happy to make space for other people to do to take charge. I don't want to be in charge anymore. I'm 55. I'm like done with it. No, thank you.
Tired.
Tired. There's other stuff. You got to think about, the next phase. But okay, so we have 3 Democratic House members have died in this Congress. It's not okay. Is it the most dangerous job in the country? How is this not enough evidence that we have a severe age problem in our government?
Congress shouldn't be the only place where you can get good elder care.
Yeah. Yes.
Like it shouldn't be the best nursing home in America.
I don't even know where to begin. It's like I also want to say that there's wisdom, okay?
Yeah.
Nobody's saying that there isn't incredible wisdom and there's incredible knowledge that we can all learn from. And there is a skill level in our political class that we can all draw upon. But the world is changing and it feels like we are now stuck. We are really stuck in a world where our leadership is not willing to step away. They feel the stakes are too high to step away. They want to hold on to these jobs forever. You're allowed to be on the Supreme Court until whenever. What are we doing? We need upper age limits. I'm sorry.
I think it's absolutely true. And I think like we have to be unafraid to have this conversation in public because, we have now seen this a couple of times over. It's not happening in private. The staff are not incentivized to, and the leaders themselves don't want to own up to it because it's sad. It's thinking about your mortality and the way in which you are failing to meet the moment. It sucks. Right. But that's why we have to do this in public. I have called for every Democrat over the age of 75 to make this their last term.
Right. That would not, I feel like that does not go over well.
No, I got some angry emails after that. But I'm right. That's the thing is I'm right. And the fact that of the House Democrats currently over the age of 75, more than half of them have already said they're going to run for re-election. What are we doing here? Are you really the only person in your entire district who could run and win and serve in this moment? If that's true, then you have failed as a politician because your job is to also bring up other leaders underneath you.
Well, isn't that just the sticky wicket? Because I feel like that is the key. That is almost like the key that is not occurring. That's like the secret sauce is that you need to be bringing people up to replace you when you want to leave, and you're supposed to want to leave.
Yeah. I don't think being a member of Congress is that fun. Why do you want to die in this job?
Right.
Don't you want to retire and be an elder statesperson and spend time with your family and not have to be on a plane back and forth every couple of days? Doesn't that sound nice?
This stuff with Joe Biden, I feel like we're still not saying the real truth about it. I feel like that people are talking around it a lot now. And there's, the book came out and everyone's like, who knew that who were the people?
Everyone knew.
People? We all fucking knew. We all knew.
Everyone had eyes. If you had eyes, you knew.
Everyone in the media knew. Everyone knew. But it distilled down to the fact that people were so afraid of Trump winning again. They just were so afraid of him winning again, which he did anyway, that nobody wanted to. It was virtually impossible to say out loud, Joe Biden is too old to do this job. And keep your job.
That was the trick.
Keep your job.
He was the only one that could have made the decision to step down.
Yes.
And I think people forget this. Even after that debate, when it was so clear he was not up to the task,
Yes.
if you came out publicly and said, I do not think Joe Biden should continue to run for president, you would get pilloried. It would be like you had said, I want to kill every puppy. It was horrific. That was after like an obvious moment.
Yes.
So I think the idea of it being a cover-up assumes an incredible amount of competence that most people in the White House have never shown. But the idea that any amount of public pressure before that moment would have been well received or even heard, he had to make the decision. And so that is why now I think it is so, so important to no, every older leader needs to be able to affirmatively make the case for why they could stick in this and be the best person for this moment, because the assumption is that you're not.
I think that's very key too, is you need to be able to affirmatively state why you are the person who meets this moment.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know how to use your own Facebook,
if you've never run your own Instagram account.
Yeah. Are you the person? I don't think that the answer is yes.
There's maybe a couple for whom I could see the argument, but most of the time, no. And, I know this because I've helped elect 1,500 of them. There are incredible younger leaders at the local level who are ready to rise.
Right. Why are people still taking advice from James Carville? Can you please explain that to me right now?
He has not won an election in a year that starts with a 2. What are we doing here? What are we doing here?
It
feels like I'm going insane. But I think it's because he'll give it, because he'll give it.
Because he'll give it, and he gives it with a lot of character. He gives it with a lot of spice,
mm-hmm.
and people really like that. But also, I do think I feel like everybody's going to be in trouble after this conversation. I do think that we have a kind of psychological need for a mommy and a daddy here
mm-hmm.
in a way that is just so painful to witness and so goddamn obvious. Well, we need a daddy, and we hate our mommies
mm-hmm.
in this country politically. That's just my general feeling. And it really colors our political experience.
I think that's right. I think we like it when they're a little mean to us,
We can have a better world.
It's you don't have to settle for this. And it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't.
I do think that one thing that we don't talk about enough also is the amount of branding and name recognition that is really critical to winning
mm-hmm.
a national campaign.
Yeah.
Kind of name recognition is pretty much the whole enchilada.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of ways. And so I don't know how we get over that and without really addressing it. It's kind of a key. It's a big deal. It's a big part of things.
I think this is the downstream effect from when parties could sort of pick nominees and then pick presidents, and you
mm-hmm.
could sort of organize labor and, party mobilization and an ecosystem of groups could sort of get everyone to show up and go to the polls.
Mm-hmm.
To now everyone gets to vote and everyone gets to participate. And I think that's good. And there's not as much gatekeeper around general elections as there used to be. The downside is that means that a presidential campaign in particular is a branding exercise, first and foremost. That's not to say policy positions don't matter, but policy positions are components of the brand.
Right.
That's people vote on how they feel about the person, not about how they think about what the person's going to do.
A big component of, I think, why Donald Trump won again is because people aspirationally think that one day they want to be as rich as him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's not a popular thing to talk about, or there's a lot of how did we fail the working class? I'm in some ways it is a branding exercise
mm-hmm.
and everybody's just familiar with this person. And they're also well, I want to be like that too one day. And I have an expectation that I will be.
Few people self-identify as a working, everyday American or a working class family.
Right.
You self-identify as someone who wants to be rich.
Right.
And that's the difference.
Right. Okay. Well, we have Ralph Norman, Republican congressman, caught on video, literally falling asleep
mm-hmm.
on camera. Our own president seems to keep falling asleep at very important meetings. I personally, at 55, feel ready to retire. Why don't they?
I think part of it is the power is intoxicating.
Right.
But I also think a lot of them, this job is all they've ever done. Like it's, to the point we were talking about earlier, their whole life has been about becoming a member of Congress.
Right.
Their whole identity is wrapped up in it. Like, who are you if you don't have the staff and the car and the votes and the public events? Like, what is left of your identity?
Right.
I talked to some members of Congress for the book, and it was really interesting. The younger ones, like, understand this is a job. It's what they do, and they love it, and they appreciate it, and they feel very lucky to be doing it, but it is a job first and foremost. And all of them said to me something along the lines of like, it's really important for me to maintain some sense of self outside of this because I know it, because I graduated in 2008 and, had jobs in the recession and have seen people lose elections, that at someday this is not going to be what I do.
Right.
This could go away at any moment. And I think that little healthy fear of losing your job, which in many places can be very scary, like it is good because it pushes you to build a sense of self outside of it.
Right. It's funny because I feel like Signalgate would never have happened with someone from Gen Z. I mean, it could have.
They're not as dumb about how technology works, I think.
Right. I mean, they'll be dumb in the future when technology surpasses them. Technology surpasses everyone. So it's coming for Gen Z. There's no question. We don't know what form it will take.
Yeah.
And they should hopefully remember what we've talked about today and go, well, now I guess it's time. I guess it's my time to step aside and go back to being a veterinarian, a rural veterinarian. I don't know.
Whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
Have a life outside of this. Every job. And this, I heard this from faith leaders, from teachers, from people who think their job is their calling. They were like, it's not. I mean, it's what I do and I love it, but it's a job.
That's funny. That's not to, again, bring it back to myself, but I learned that lesson from one of my acting teachers when I was growing up. She was like, why do people want to live in a character all the time? It's just a job. You get paid.
And like, it should be a good job. It should pay you well. It should give you dignity. It should be like compassionate and intellectually interesting. It should give you all the things you want out of the way you spend most of your waking hours.
Yes.
But you should be more than that.
Right.
And the onus is on leadership to set up guardrails so you can.
A lot of what you do is that you speak truth to power, and it's uncomfortable to speak to the DC establishment and say things to them that they don't want to hear. How do you do that without making enemies of them and having your own access like restricted or just getting cut out of the rooms that you need to be in?
Part of it is being okay with making enemies, knowing that it's in service of a larger goal.
Right.
Part of it is remembering that even the most popular politician maybe has a 70% approval rating. That still means 30% of people hate them.
Right.
If you take a stand for something and you have a point of view, some people are going to disagree with you, and that's just part of doing business. And then I try to be really intentional about the fights I pick. Like, not every fight is in service of the goal of what I'm trying to accomplish with Run for Something. So I don't have to pick it. But I think when we're talking in particular about the need for generational change, like it is the benefit of both being right on face value, and also it is what I've been fighting for the last 8 years with my work. So gotta pick it.
When you look at the DNC right now, has anybody ever suggested that you take on a role there? Or are you like, I'm staying very far away. You do your thing.
It has come up over the years, but it is so... the DNC as an organization does not do what most people think they do, which I think is a challenge for people. And like what Run for Something does, getting people to run for office and helping them enter power, like that's what I want to be doing.
Right.
The DNC, especially right now, the most important thing it can be doing is rebuilding trust in itself in order to prepare to set up the presidential primary of 2028.
Right.
Everything else is sort of aside from that.
Is there someone in Congress right now who's not that young, who's like more my generation, who's currently using social media in a way that you think is effective, that you're like, okay, this person is on
That's
point?
A good question. I think Brian Schatz is really good at it.
He's really good at it.
Because I think it's him most of the time. I think Chris Murphy is often pretty good at it. I think Cory Booker can be very cheesy, but he is exactly himself. And that is who he is.
Right.
Those are the three where I'm like,
Maxwell Frost.
I love, Maxwell Frost is closer to my age, but I love Maxwell Frost. AOC obviously is the GOAT at social media. I think she is so good at it.
Right.
And I think like all of those ones I just named, they all are like the right amount of online. Like you need to be a little bit online. The problem with the Republicans is they are too online. They have the brainworms.
Right.
We need elected officials who are just like a little bit online. A
little bit. They know how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
They know how to speak. I mean, it's tricky. It's not really for everyone. Like I'm not good at it at all. And I understand that it's not in my skill set, but it is actually tricky to get your authentic self, to communicate your authentic self in that manner.
I've had Facebook since I was 15. Before that, I had MySpace, I had live journals, I had AIM where you would like curate your away message and your little profile and, the secret coded song lyrics in your away message so that your crush might see it when he would log on. Like that was strategic communication. I was just 14.
Right.
Which is the same thing I basically do now when I like post on social except for the ideal target is not boy, I want to like me. It's reporter or donor or potential candidate.
Primaries. So traditionally, Democratic Party has not been, especially in the last year and a half, there's been no welcoming feeling about any type of primary. How do we get okay with that? They're okay. Primaries are good. Primaries are useful. Primaries serve a function, and they road test candidates in a way that strengthens them.
Politics is like everything else in that you get better at it with practice. Primaries give you practice. They're also how we decide as a party what we believe. It is so important that we let Democratic voters make their voice heard in these processes. Primaries are good. They're not a waste of resources. I think that is like a talking point that drives me up a wall because the amount of money in politics keeps going up and up. There is no such thing as a waste of resources. There's always more. For better or for worse, there's always more. We really, really, really need to be welcoming to this because I think if there's anything we've learned over the last couple of years, it's that the people in charge have no idea what a good candidate is.
Right.
So we should not be counted to make those decisions. And I include myself in that. Run for something endorses people running against each other. We think our position is like empower candidates to make as good of an argument as they can, talk to voters, give them all the tools they need to do that, and then let voters decide.
Do you think that because so many celebrities just fall all over themselves and what they think are cool campaigns, I get asked to do so many of them. Or not that I'm a celeb, but you know what I mean? Not that I'm cool even. And I'm like, I don't do any of it. I'm like, I don't do any of this because I actually don't like it. And I don't think that it's effective. My sense is that voters truly just literally don't care. What do you think as someone who runs campaigns?
Celebrities have platforms that can get attention on things. I think it's kind of like influencers or media companies. They all have audiences, but it's not like anyone really cares who a celebrity endorses.
Right.
Like that's not a thing.
Right.
It is more like, it makes sense that this person who has this, artistic brand also likes this kind of candidate.
Can you talk a little bit about the importance of down ballot races too? We just talked about that on Full Frontal all the time, and I don't know that it ever really hit home.
There are more than 500,000 elected offices in the United States. Most of them are not Congress and not president. There are state legislatures, school boards, library boards, city councils, mosquito abatement districts, utility boards, community college boards. And these positions make the kinds of decisions that affect whether you have clean water to drink, good streets to drive on, how well-funded your schools are, how easy or hard it is for you to get an abortion or to vote. Like, Congress, especially right now, doesn't do much anymore outside of crash the economy. There is so much important stuff happening at the local level. The danger, I think, for Democrats is that when we get so excited about the flashy stuff at the top of the ticket, we forget to pay attention to the stuff that can really make or break people's quality of life. I think about this, especially around housing. Most decisions around housing, around zoning and building and all of that happen at the local level.
Right.
And when you think about the number one thing that affects people's cost of living is the cost of their rent or their mortgage.
Right.
If Democrats paid more attention to local offices and did more, especially in blue places, to elect pro-housing people, we might have been able to make a dent in the number one cost of living issue over the last couple of years.
I feel like this is the key. This is like the core. This is like the core message. It's like getting involved at the level that you can actually be helpful at.
Mm-hmm.
All these, quality of life is like they're trying to ban books in my local library. Yeah. And so somebody has to step into the fray and say, I oppose this. Mm-hmm. I'm going to run against you. And we're going to try to lift this, issue up to people and say, like, you really want this? You really think Judy Blume is opening a portal to hell in your child's bedroom?
It actually doesn't take that much to beat these people. On the local level, these spaces are small. Most of them are affordable. And the candidates who are the craziest, voters are not really interested in that. The shtick that works for Trump does not work for basically any other Republican. So when you give them an alternative that seems competent and like they can relate to, man, we have seen Democrats and people who share our values win in all kinds of crazy places in ways you wouldn't expect because, as it turns out, extremism, not that fun when you have to live with it.
Yeah. And you know what? It really sucks that you could have a really extreme person running for something in your local area and they just run up unopposed. Which happens 70%. All the time.
Something like 70% of local races go uncontested.
Are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. I did not know that.
It's huge. It's a huge problem. And a vast majority of them are Republicans running without an opponent.
If that's not a clarion call, I really don't know what is. That is huge.
Well, they have built deep infrastructure to support candidates running for these offices. They have got a really aggressive program to train people. There's an organization called the Leadership Institute that's been around since the 80s that has a $50 million a year budget that has been running school board candidate trainings for the last couple of years and does stuff for city council races. Run for Something is the closest analog to that on the left. And we are maybe going to spend $8 million this year, maybe.
Okay.
So it's not like apples to apples. It's apples to apple seeds.
Right. So vital. Just vital. I have enjoyed talking to you so much. We went right into it.
We went right in. Well,
we just right into it. I mean, everything you're doing is just, it's so important. And I think, and your books are great. And I encourage anyone who's listening to also just go to Run for Something and be like, wait a minute. Should I run
the answer
for something?
Is yes.
The answer is yes.
The answer is yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for saying yes to this.
Thank you for having me.
Very enjoyable.
That was Amanda Litman, and I had no choice but to look up one thing. We were talking about how many down-ballot candidates run unopposed, and she rocked my world when she said it is 70% of down-ballot candidates run unopposed. I had to see if it was true, and she was right, because of course she was. This is her job. Come on, people. We are not leaving anything on the table anymore, okay? Literally, run for something. Thanks for joining us. I'm Samantha Bee, and see you next week for some more Choice Words. Thank you for listening to Choice Words, which was created by and is hosted by me. The show is produced by Tzvia Baron-Reinstein with editing and additional producing by Josh Richmond. We're distributed by Lemonada Media, and you can find me at RealSamB on X and Instagram. Follow Choice Words wherever you get your podcasts or listen ad-free on Amazon Music with your Prime membership.